morning and welcome to another brand new season, another live edition of Wealth Building Wednesday. Wealth Building Wednesday is a broadcast brought to you by TRHT Selma. TRHT stands for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. We are an initiative based in the historic city of Selma, Alabama, and we are made up of two very integral nonprofit organizations in our community, the Black Belt Community Foundation and the Selma Center for Nonviolence. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. My name is Lydia Chapman. I serve as your host for these amazing 30 minutes, right? And we are starting off our fall season with a bang, our fall 23 season with a bang, because we have with us none other than the serial entrepreneur. He is not just an entrepreneur. He's a pastor. He's a daddy. He's a granddaddy. Like he's an amazing author. He is a public speaker, an inspirational speaker, and his name is KK Middleton. And so good morning and welcome to Wealth Building Wednesday.
Good morning, grace and peace. Thank you so much, Coach Lydia, for having me on your platform. Hello to all of your listening audience. And I'm just looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you so much. Out of all the people you could have chosen to do this segment, thank you for allowing me on your platform.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of anyone better to open the season with. And it's so funny because our paths have crossed in many different ways, but we've never made this connection. So it is a delight and an honor to actually have you accept the invitation and to be here with us. So I do want to invite our audience, if you're watching live right now, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, please take the time to like and share. We're going to have some really good conversation today, and we're going to learn some things about entrepreneurship and this journey that we call entrepreneurship. And I want to just ask you, just dive straight into the questions. Why did you choose entrepreneurship?
Oh, good question. I'll say growing up in poverty, I felt that I had to take control of my survival. So I will say my circumstances forced me into that lane because I wasn't in a position where I could depend on anyone else. My father died when I was 5. I was an outside child. My mom went into a deep depression, became addicted to drugs, and I was always taught not to ask her for anything. And so even as a child, I learned how to take people's clothes to the laundromat, wash them, dry them, fold them, and deliver them back to them. And I used to make my food stamps in order to have my pizza and ice cream on the weekends. And I started babysitting as a young boy I was just a child myself. So entrepreneurship, being self-employed, making my own decisions, it came to me. I was forced into it as a child.
Wow. So it's almost like entrepreneurship chose you as opposed to you choosing entrepreneurship. So how has being an entrepreneur changed your life? I know that you said that as a child, you had multiple streams of income and that you were able to survive basically because of your interest in making your self-interest, right? But now, as an adult, like how has entrepreneurship changed your life?
I enjoy what drives me is being able to change the life of others. Biggest motivation is being able to be labeled as the nicest employer that someone has ever come in contact with, or raising the bar in customer service. So those are just my personal things that triggers me in a good way. That's what I live for. I love being in the coaching position. I love changing the rules. I love disrupting the norm. And so that's what drives me. It's not about the money. I have multiple degrees. I just turned down a job last Thursday. I could have made $70,000 and clocking out by 3:30 in the afternoon. So entrepreneurship for me is not about the financial profit. It's about the impact that I can make immediately without going through a board, without having to get the buy-in of a committee. It's being the head coach, and that's what drives me.
Now, something you just said about it's not about the money. And folks have got to, that's one of the biggest challenges that I've experienced in having conversations with folks about being an entrepreneur is the focus tends to be for a lot of folks on the money, right? And so if it's not, but now I will say of the most successful entrepreneurs that even folks that I've had on as guests on Wealth Building Wednesday, every single one of them points to the importance of wanting to serve people as opposed to wanting to have these big paydays. Like the money comes as an aside, if you will.
Right, right. I agree. I have people on my team who are employees. And when I say team, within my inner circle, they're doing well and they're making 90, 100, $110,000. They're not the boss. They're their employees and they're happy. And so again, it's about knowing where your strength lies. Some of us have been called not to be the entrepreneur, but to assist the entrepreneur. And so it's about searching out your true divine purpose, because if you're doing it for fame and for likes, you're going to fall. You're going to crumble. I encourage us all to understand that what you see on the TV screen and on social media right now is not the person that they've always been. They had to work to get to there. And a lot of us have scars we don't talk about. A lot of us have bruises we don't show. A lot of us have setbacks and we have taken L's that we don't publicize. And so what you see in a lot of us is the resurrected boss lady or boss man, but you were not there when we were on the cross.
All right, now come on, preacher. Look. Yes. So now you talked about your first businesses. So now, are any of those businesses anything that you still are connected to? I know when you mentioned babysitting, like, is that something that, do you have a childcare center?
It's interesting that you asked that. I've been asked recently by two well-known entrepreneurs who are in that industry. They've definitely asked me to come on into that industry, and I'm really considering it in the near future. But I still have a barbershop located in West Montgomery that I passed over to my brother. That business still exists. I ended up starting there back in 1999 as an entry-level barber. I was paying booth rent, and then I discovered who the owner of the property was. And a couple of years later, I volunteered my services to manage the shop for free. And then I went to them proving my integrity and my stewardship, and I asked them to sell it to me. They didn't think that I had what it takes to buy it. But then I asked them again, I was persistent. I said, please sell me the building. And I ended up being able to buy it, and they financed it for me. And I didn't even argue. They gave me a price that was double what it was worth in value, according to the appraisal of the county. And I ended up paying them $150,000 plus for a building that was only valued at 69, but they couldn't argue because I did not debate them on their selling price. They threw a price out there to discourage me, but I took on the challenge. And in 10 and a half years, I paid them with an additional $100,000 that I put into the building to upgrade it. So after $250,000 later, I still own that property. Even though I blessed one of my siblings with it, I'm still the owner of it. And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't a greedy person. So part of our wealth building is not for us. It is to empower those. My goal with a couple of other things, I want to die empty. I want to die without nothing. My goal is to empower those who I believe may live longer than me.
Now that's a beautiful thing. And it really is, it's really exciting to hear you say that. And I know that the word exciting may be confusing to some folks, but it's exciting because when you say that you want to die empty, it really points to the fact that you are pouring out, right? And you're pouring out from the overflow. So you have amassed real estate, which is something that we talk about on Wealth Building Wednesday, and it's important to pass it down, right? So having, like our grandparents used to say, having your business in order, right? To make sure that those things are able to not just sit there and folks have to worry about probate and things like that, but that your documentation is in order so that people that are coming behind us, whether it's our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, cousins, aunties, whoever, that folks can benefit from our lives in a way that can help them, right?
Right.
Real estate is one of the most extraordinary investments that any of us can make. And
Yeah.
having access to that means that you may have free college education for generations, right? Just
And
because you can get loans against the property.
and I encourage us not to get discouraged if the traditional bank don't want to assist you.
Right.
Again, my story is building relationships with the real owners
Yeah.
and say, hey, if you don't mind, I'll pay you double if you finance it, because you're going to pay double with the bank anyway. When you talk about the interest and the down payment, you're going to pay it no matter how it looks, no matter how it's worded. One thing I've learned about negotiation, you always put the person across from you in a position to not tell you no. You always show them how they can benefit. And it works 10 times out of 10.
Now, you're not the first person that I've heard say that. As a matter of fact, in the Airbnb industry, there are lots of folks who say that, that it's important to talk to the property owner. So you don't necessarily even have to own the property that you are, that you're soliciting and putting up on Airbnb, but that you make it make sense for the property owner. So y'all, he is dropping gems this morning. So if you are tuned in and watching live, please feel free to share this video. If you are watching and it's after we are live, please feel free to share the video and ask questions. This is a live broadcast. So if you hear something that KK says and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I want to know more about that, drop us a line and we'll try to make sure that we can get to your question. One of the things that we talked about prior to us going live was about the importance of personal work, right? And the idea that, you were talking about separating your business from your brand.
Right.
So can you share a little bit with the audience the difference between the actual business and the brand and the different timetable that it may take for us to develop both of those?
Well, what I want to encourage people to understand is that there's more than one way to make money. One way, of course, we all know is having a superb product. But then the other way is an outstanding and amazing personality. And so you got to know which one do you specialize in. All of us have to do the SWOT analysis. We have to look at, when we talk about being an entrepreneur, we have to be able to do a self-examination of our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. And we have to be able to strongly be critical of self and say, hey, what's really popping? Is it my product or are people buying my personality? I've learned through trial and error, you cannot rely on your personality 100%, because the same personality that people adore and that they love can be the same personality that causes sabotage to come your way. And so some of us aren't successful because we are loved. And so we end up with a high level of warfare, which ultimately ends up distracting us. And then we lose our focus. Now the decent product that we have is still on the shelf. And so you got to know what you can handle. Now, some of us, we have amazing products. The product sells itself. When you think about a Mercedes Benz, nobody knows off the top of their head who's the CEO. And so, Frosted Flakes, an amazing product. Nobody knows who's over that brand. And so when you come across a good product, yes, it can sell itself long as it's easy and accessible. But most of us, let's face it, we're going to do well when we have a good personality. We're professional. We're not known for being a shyster. We're not known for trying to make more and underdeliver. We have to develop the good brand. That's why we have to be careful what we post. We have to be careful how we vent and who we vent to. We have to make sure that we're known as being cheerleaders. People are going to do business with those who they know, like, and trust. Most of us, we are piss poor when it comes to cheerleading. And we're wondering why nobody wants to buy our candles. Nobody wants to buy our hair. Nobody wants to buy our hot dog. It's not that the product isn't good. They don't like us. And so, if you're an introvert, you're not good with people. If you don't do people, then maybe you need to consider partnering with somebody else and let them be the brand. ambassador. Allow them to be the face, and just don't get envious when they blow up with the attention and the notoriety. Just continue to collect your percentage behind the scenes.
Now, you just said something then. Listen, that is literally the strategy that some of the very brands that we see on television use today. Nobody's jealous of the CEO of Gucci, the CEO of Louis
Nike,
Vuitton. Yes, Nike. They're not worried about whether you
they
know
don't look
who they
for
are
attention.
or not. Right.
They put brand ambassadors out there, and they
Yes.
let them make the bulk of the profit. All you got to do is have multiple streams and collect 10% off of each business. Now you're back at your 100%. You don't have to be greedy. It's a real simple equation.
Now that's a math that's really math. And listen, and I hope the folks are listening. People do business. You just said that people do business with who they know, who they like, and who they trust. So we have to be mindful of how we're showing up as our individual selves, like on social media, right? And when you just said that thing about not retaliating against people when they say things or when they do things that we don't like, that is one of the very founding principles of, and I did share in the beginning that TRHT Selma is a partnership between the Black Belt Community Foundation and the Selma Center for Nonviolence. One of the things that we do that is the most violent thing is that we engage in conversations on social media and do the back and forth as opposed to addressing the person face to face, right? And handling it in a professional way. When we take it to social media, it can turn into a totally different situation. And then everyone who's watching or reading can't necessarily differentiate between whether this is something they need to address or chime in on. And you don't really know what the long-term impact can be, whether it's on your business or community. So listen, who they know, who they like, who they trust. That's who people do business with.
Yeah, it's about, listen, economic growth will only come after you have emotional discipline. You got to have emotional discipline. I'm not saying you're not human, but we have to learn how to cry in private and cheerlead in public. You know, I'm telling you, a lot of this is just about your personal brand. Being known as the life of the party, not the death of the party.
All right.
A lot of us, we kill ourselves before we even get started. And we don't realize people hold grudges and they have memories and they don't forgive. And so a lot of us, we have to disappear for a while and rebrand, reinvent ourselves, and come back aggressive with positivity.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that's for sure. And again, we see that with even some brand ambassadors and people who are a part of major corporations, that they disappeared for a while and then they reemerge with a level of positivity that's undeniable. One of the things that I've started doing, and I want to ask you about the books that you read, because I know that experience teaches us. And a part of how we can accumulate experience is not necessarily us having to go through it, but by relying on the experience of other people as they write it down. So one of the books that I'm rereading for the third time is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you're an entrepreneur, I want to encourage folks out there who are watching live, get the book. Put sticky notes in it, take notes, grab your pen, your notebook. There is a workbook that accompanies the book. But what are the books that you're reading or that you've read that stand out to you of the nuggets that you're dropping for us today and things that you've just carried with you over the years?
Now, because of who I am an extremist daily for years, nonstop on what we call the Book of Proverbs. Okay. I do this daily. There's 31 chapters in the Book of Proverbs, which is in the Bible for those who are believers, whether you are a Jew, Muslim, or Christian. And so each day of the month, I read that chapter for today. I read from the Message Bible translation. And another secret weapon of mine is the 48 Laws of Power. Okay. I am an extremist on consuming that because I realize the world is filled with ego. And there are so many booby traps. And so I have to stay keen and alert on making sure that I'm not the elephant in the china shop. And so definitely I encourage all of us to read the 48 Laws of Power and stay up on your daily proverbs.
All right. So now I want to know, and I'm sure the people out there want to know. So you have accumulated a lot of business experience. For those of us who are connected to you on social media, we see you at these various business locations. How many businesses do you currently own?
On record, I'll say this. On record, it's rotating between 3 and 4. I recently made a decision to close one business, which was my restaurant, not because I didn't get the support of the public. We were doing sellout days. After 12 weeks, I was grateful for at least 12,000 a month coming in, which was pretty decent for a startup restaurant, on top of renting the building out for the venues. So I was grateful. But now the things were not just aligning with my business partner. And so I'm not against partnerships. I just think that what I did was I went in with a handshake on this particular deal, and I didn't require us to have the strong dialogue of my expectations and vice versa. So I just grew into the assumption that we were of like minds, and it ended up that we were not. So I had to make a wise decision long term, stop the bleeding, just go ahead and go our separate ways. Did I take a loss? Sure. But you can make some more money. Just make sure that you don't try to have to fix your reputation for doing bad business. And so now I'm currently in Clanton, Alabama. I've secured the premises, gone through all the legalities of opening up a car lot, back home auto sales. I'm excited about that. It's on the main highway when you come off exit 205. I'm just really, really excited about how God is going to use me in that. But also, there's 3 other businesses, one doing really well in the retail industry in a whole nother city that my name is not out front. It's straight product driven. It's doing well. And that came through trial and error. I had to learn that everybody don't like KK. Not that I've done anything to them, but a lot of us as humans, we try to put a cap on people and their success. And people will intentionally sabotage you once they think that you've made it beyond what they've allowed you to want to do for your life. So you got to know when to do what. You got to know when to use your personality, and you got to know when to let the product sell itself. And so when you talk about being the brand ambassador, that's one thing, but you got to know how to be a quiet CEO as well. You better believe that Jeff Bezos has his hands in other things that we know nothing about. But publicly, he's being promoted as Amazon. Elon Musk, we know him through Twitter and through Tesla. But I promise you, when you do your homework, his hands are in on other things, and it's product-based, not personality-based.
Absolutely. And so now I know you did mention the difficulty that you had with your prior business partner related to the restaurant. But like, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced over the years as an entrepreneur that you just simply did not anticipate?
Listen, I'll tell anybody, a lot of my success has come now that my children are potty out of high school. I will say to anyone who believes you to be an entrepreneur, make sure that you're not putting others in a sacrificial and compromising situation. I lost my first wife due to a divorce because I was an entrepreneur, she wasn't. And I do agree that you do need stable income, but you also have to have someone who understands the risk that are involved, because if not, you're going to have a lot of confusion. I don't recommend that you just walk in one day and tell somebody you're going to quit your job when they've been taught that you need a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. You have to tread lightly. A lot of things that I'm able to do now is because I have no one to answer to. I'm a single man, and the children are self-sufficient. And so you got to make sure that you are not putting others in harm's way, because it's a risky business. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But if you're the only one that has to suffer, then it's worth the risk.
Okay. So now, what about funding, right? You did mention that as a challenge. So I know that it is a challenge, though, for a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, right? Especially when they're talking about just
Sacrifice.
getting started. Okay. So
Sacrifice.
funding. Mhm.
Funding comes from within. I've never had a bank to write me a check. It has to be self-funded, which means you got to do a lot of self-denial. At 44 years of age, I still don't take vacations. So it's not that we don't have the money, it's what we're doing with it. You got to say, hey, I'm not going to the casino for 3 years. I'm not going to buy my designer bag for 3 years. I'm not going to go on vacation for 3 years. It's about self-sacrifice. Never listen to a person who say they don't have money. We all have money. It's about what you do with it. And you got to sow into yourself. You got to invest into yourself. And then after doing that, you build up the credibility. And what will happen as you start being a good steward over those small investments, you will start to attract investors. And so you got to first, though, show the people that you can sweat, you can abstain, you're not going to smoke weed, you're not going to snort the cocaine, you're not going to go out here and try to wild out and make it to every party. Once you show the world that you can sacrifice, I'm telling you, you're going to attract the sowers. It's like, and I say this now at 44, there's nothing that I can't. I just had somebody to inbox me and they straight up said, let me know when you're ready to open Middleton's Grocery.
All right.
Listen,
all
there's
right.
people out here who are very quiet, but they have the capital, but they're not impressed with paperwork.
All right.
They're not impressed with your credit score. They're impressed with your stewardship. See, we out here looking instead of understanding we're being looked at. If you are really doing what you're doing authentically, if you're doing it with excellence, the sowers, their investors, the funders will find you. There are a lot of people looking for good soil, but a lot of us haven't demonstrated that we're the right seed. Like we're not displaying that we can be trusted. We're not displaying that we're the soil that they can put their seeds in. We have to show them that we can sacrifice, and it's not about being flashy, that we can go in Walmart and put on an outfit and still serve with excellence. It has to be your attitude. You got to be able to show people that you know how to recover. See, people are watching. This came after I publicly said the restaurant closed. Opportunity on top of opportunity came open. So what we do oftentimes, we'll take a L and go hide. We'll make a bad investment and go hide. You wasn't real from the start. According to the Bible, you only get 3 days to cry. Why the hell you still whining after 3 months? You only get 3 days to cry. Get up and try it again.
Absolutely. Get up and try it again. And one of our viewers says, sow into yourself. Sis, I took the same thing away from what he said. Sow into yourself. It's so important for us to pour into ourselves in order to be able to pour into others from the
I don't understand
overflow.
when you talk about sowing. Listen, sowing into yourself are simple things like taking $4,000 and putting it in your mouth. I got false teeth across the top of my mouth. How can you be an effective author, public speaker, and you look unattractive?
Right.
Like nobody's telling us that.
Right.
They wondering how Denzel keep getting these movies. He put something in his mouth.
Yeah.
He put the same veneers in the front of his mouth. Like this is so important. You got to sow into yourself. You got to work on your mind and your muscles. You got to work on your intellect and your image. Sow into yourself. I promise you, you're going to attract more when you do more for self.
Absolutely. You know what? And one of the things that literally keeps popping into my mind as you're talking about the importance of sowing into ourselves and the image that we portray. And what we're encouraging folks to do is not to be fake, be yourself, but understand that people are watching you. So going outside, and we have been known, listen, with these bonnets and going outside with pajama pants on. Listen, I know people, it may be hard for folks to hear, but at the end of the day, people invest in, people support what they feel like is going to match their brand or what they want to ascend to, right?
Man,
And so if
listen.
we want the support, if we want to say when we walk into a job, who's to say that the person who's sitting, again, like, just literally, this doesn't even have to be a person that's supporting your business. If you are looking for a job, and this lady just saw you in Walmart with pajama pants and a comb in your hair, right? And now you're coming to her in a professional environment saying you want a job. It's like, wait a minute, now who am I going to get?
Right. Listen, you got to always live your life like you're under surveillance, like you're being interviewed. You got to always look at people are purchasing confidence in this season.
Right.
They want confidence on their team. They're investing into confidence because, unfortunately, confidence is at an all-time low.
No.
The supply is low, but the demand is big.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people out here with degrees and certifications, but they don't have impact.
Right.
They don't have energy. They don't have confidence. And so you got to make sure that you know how to sell self, and with an authentic, consistent persona, not just I fix up on Sundays. No, I don't care if I'm doing construction. I'm gonna have swag on Monday. Mm-hmm. When I did work physically in construction after going to trade school, I worked for an HVAC refrigeration commercial company. Man, I was coordinated. Even my tools matched my hat. Everything was in sync with my brand. My pickup truck, I washed it at least twice a week. I made sure that everything was coordinated. I didn't speed. I put on my seatbelt. And within record times, I had a company truck. I was the youngest person with the company out of 21, but I was the leader. With the least educational experience, but I had the right professionalism. And so it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can't change who you are just because your title changes. Right. Your personality has to change. Your mindset has to change. If not, you're just going to be a broke person with a title.
All right. A broke person that will break other people because of your title.
Because of your deceit. A lot of people are being deceitful. Mm-hmm. They're not an entrepreneur. They're not a CEO, but they're just being deceitful and they're baiting you in. They have no fruit. That's why I'm not impressed with a lot of people who call themselves a coach. Like, man, real coaches don't win championships every year, but their wins outweigh their L's and they keep showing up. That's who I listen to. Not the people who just give me one side, because now you're being deceitful. Right. You got to be able to let people know. For 8 years after my first divorce, I turned a 2-car garage into my loft apartment. Facts. I sacrificed in order to get to where I am. Even as a half ago, I had a 2,500 square foot home, 2-car garage, totally renovated. I sold it. It was paid for. I sold it, cleared the profit, and put it all into what I'm doing now. And so it's about sacrifice and rolling the dice on yourself. How you want to go borrow, but you ain't putting your own up? That's the first thing a boss and a real investor is going to see. How much of you are you willing to give? See, you'll never meet another person that's going to give more than KK Middleton. I'm always going to be the biggest investor, the biggest sower in any venture. There will never be another human. I don't care if it's church. There'll never be another human that outsold me, that outinvest me. So I can't help but get the bulk of the profit if I'm doing the bulk of the investing. And that's not just dealing with the money. I'm going to go hard unconditionally. Don't matter if I'm preaching or not. I'm going to be the loudest in the building. It's about who you really are, the core of you. Some of us are lazy no matter what title you give us. Some of us are just sorry as hell no matter what position you give us. So it ain't like if I quit this job and go to this one, I'm going to be a better person. No, shine where you are. If you're a boss, be a boss even on the trash truck. If you're a boss, be a boss even if you're third in command. Like who you are, they can't hide it. You can't hide it. They can't suppress you because it's just going to bleed out. It's going to come through your pores. It's going to smell like a fragrance. In the words of Deion Sanders, they asked him, what cologne are you wearing? He said, none. He said, but if you just got to get a name for it, it's called confidence.
All right.
See, that's what money can't buy. School don't teach you that. That's inner work. You either got it or you don't.
And so I'm so glad that you said that it's about the inner work. And unfortunately, that's the time that a lot of us aren't willing to spend, is doing the inner work, is reading books, right? And if you don't read well, get audio. It will read itself to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So get the information. And I really truly mean that. Like one of the most successful entrepreneurs that I met while I was living in Syracuse, New York years ago was a man who literally had to have other people fill out his paperwork, but he could spit out knowledge from books from all around the world because he would listen to them or have someone either like through a program like Audible or have someone read them to him. So full of information.
YouTube is my number one source that eats up my data.
University.
man, it's out here.
Yeah.
It's out here. I gotta drive, I gotta work, I gotta walk. So I'm constantly pouring into self.
Yes.
Man, other strong-minded people who specialize in mental toughness, that's who I glean from. Iron sharpens iron. But a lot of us, we know we're supposed to be iron, but we keep running around with untreated rotten wood.
My Lord. Come on now.
And so they're draining you.
Preach.
They're draining you. And they're only attracting termites that are eating away from the core of who you are. A lot of us don't want to disassociate. We want to keep it real with the bottom. My favorite hashtag is see you at the top. If I don't see you at the top, that means you was afraid of heights, but you're not stopping me.
All right.
Yeah, when you talk about being Christ-like, yeah, he fed 5,000 on the ground, but it wasn't but a few in the upper room.
All right.
You got to be able to be okay with isolation.
Yes.
You got to be okay with understanding that I ain't going to be at all of the big funded parties. You're not going to catch me in a lot of high traffic areas.
Right.
At the end of the day, man, I leave that up to them, but I know bosses have to move differently. Because at the end of the day, I need you to respect me, but I also need to make sure you're not draining me. And so a lot of us just got to do some realigning mentally, because I want you to understand wealth is not also how much you can bring in, but it's also how much you can stop from going out. See, that's a cultural thing. We got to learn how to stop being the biggest consumers. You know, some of us just overspend.
Absolutely.
And I know that what I'm saying on this stream is going to go in a lot of people hearing out the other, because they're going to keep on spending. But then when they get to 50 years of age, they're going to be disappointed with what they. But it's like the math. If you blew $1,000 a month, you done blew $1 million over the course of a lifetime talking about where my money. You spent it on things that made no sense, that gave you no gratification. You tried to make it rain on everybody and treating everybody. And then at the end of the day, when it's time for them to reciprocate, they get ghosted. And so your best investment is self. Your best investment is self. Keep working on you, the inner you, then let it flow over to the outer you. Because, man, listen, you're going to be disappointed trying to just constantly pour and pour and pour. Jesus says, didn't I heal 10 of y'all? But only one of you fools came back to say thank you.
Right.
So you got to make sure that as you're eating, one of my mistakes that I made on a business venture is I made sure all my staff ate and I didn't even write me a check. And so that went on for about 11 months. So moving forward, I always understand when I'm fixing plates, fix myself one. Fix myself one. That way, when it runs its course and the business is no longer popping, I'm not mad because I ended up eating along the way. A lot of us are bitter because we didn't reward ourselves along the way. If anybody gonna get a check, if you're the investor, you got to get yours first. Make sure you eat, because I'm telling you, this world does not respect your grind, your sacrifice. You got to do this for you. For you. You got to make it count for you. Do something for yourself.
And I really want to, because I know time has been well spent. Listen, we are 41 minutes into a 30-minute show, but this has been an awesome opportunity for us to have this dialogue, which is very much needed, especially in the Black community, where we often are investing in the temporary. And I often reference the movie Baby Boy, where the gentleman who was dating Tyrese's dad, talks about guns and butter and the things that we invest in. Now, I don't like the reference to guns, but what he was talking about, I'll say, is houses and butter, right?
Right.
And so investing in a house makes more sense than investing in shoes, clothes, jewelry, hair, all of those things, because every single one of those things, as soon as you get it, even cars, as soon as you get them off the showroom floor,
they depreciate.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm going into the used car business to let people know mathematically, man, let it depreciate. It's still gonna run.
Right. Let it depreciate first.
I bought so many brand new cars off the showroom floor. And I'm talking about in a year, I try to go and trade it in. I'm still upside down.
Yep.
Let it depreciate.
Right. And real estate being those one of those things that appreciates, right? It's very rare that you hear about real estate and people buying house these days being upside down.
And let people know that it's okay to rent out a bedroom. You got to start looking at how to maximize your earnings. Put a padlock on it, put a deadbolt on it. Hey, man, put a mini fridge in it and rent it out. Like you got 3 bedrooms, break it up. A lot of people don't want to be responsible for a whole home. And so there's always going to be people who just want to live convenient. And so we're not going to penalize those who don't want to own a home. We're just going to accommodate them and make you some profit in the process.
Absolutely. Rent it out. And then even when you reference 1 bedroom, don't be afraid to start over. Because if you're in, like you talked about the partnership, the business partnership, but if you're in friendship, partnership, marriage, if you're roommates with somebody who is toxic to where you're trying to go, if they're not going to serve as a thrust to help move you forward, and you only feel the drag of them pulling you down, don't be afraid to start over. Go rent one of them rooms he's talking about and put you a mini fridge. And
I was looking at the math of what I could have made with my last business. This is Wednesday. Monday night, I secured a deal for the next 20 years. Like, what we be afraid of losing, God has something better.
Yeah.
And so, but you got to be able to release. You can't embrace the new until you release the old. I promise you that your future is bright, but you got to let go of your dark past. Don't worry about the critics. One thing I love about media and the news, there's always something else on breaking news. There's always a new headliner. Your embarrassment, I promise you, is temporary, and it's overrated because you assume everybody's laughing at you, but half of those people are really inspired. You're really doing the work of God once you show them that you're not attached to stuff, but you're attached to your peace. And I promise you, when you get attached to your peace, the prosperity will be a byproduct.
My God. Listen, KK, I'm going to have you back on for another episode of Wealth Building Wednesday. The fact that we are ending on the idea of protecting and being passionate about our peace. Listen, we in a few days I'll be turning 45 years old, right? And so one of the things that I am so into right now is protecting my peace. So if it's not worth arguing, I'm just not going to engage in frivolous conversations. You got
And let your peace also be connected to your expenses.
yes.
At certain points in your life, if this expense is stressing you,
Yep.
release yourself and don't be afraid to file bankruptcy. We live in America.
Amen.
I promise you there's life after bankruptcy. I did it back in 2020. I mean, not 2020, 2000, the year 2000. I was a young person and learned about it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the paperwork at my house, and listen, there's life after that. There's life after that. Don't be afraid to admit I bit off more than I can chew. And if you read your Proverbs daily, it'll tell you that when you find yourself in a hock, with a situation, sometimes people will cause you to make an emotional purchase, an emotional investment. And after the high is blown, you have to understand that happened with another business of mine. Look at the trends of foreigners. Whatever they're not doing, be concerned. Be concerned. If they're not into that market, why are you? A lot of time people are selling you something that's no longer popping. And one thing about it I learned at sociology, studying the Bible is important, but you better study the trend of people.
Yeah.
The people will tell you what to invest into. They'll tell you.
Absolutely.
You thinking you can change a culture of people is insane. You can't change the people, but you can get paid off of them if you give them what they want, not what they need.
What they want.
I had to learn that.
Yeah.
You go broke as a wannabe entrepreneur trying to give people what they need. Folks ain't buying what they need. They buying what they want.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to make them understand that, hey, you're here for customer service, not customer alteration, not customer manipulation, not customer modification. No, I'm here, baby. You want chili on your hot dog? Here you go. You want onions on your hot dog? Here you go. Whatever you, baby, here you go. You want mustard and mayo? Here you go. Customer service.
Absolutely.
Customer already know what they want.
This is so very true. And again, I just want to thank you. I'm going to have you on again so that we can continue to share this information, glean from your knowledge. Y'all, if you have been tuning in, watching live, you've been tuned into our very first episode of our Fall 23 season of Wealth Building Wednesday. We want to invite you back to join us each and every Wednesday, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. We typically spend 30 minutes. We went a little over today, but we have this is our first show of the new season, and we had a very special guest who had still has a lot of information to share with us. So I want to invite you to join us next Wednesday, 10 a.m. right here for Wealth Building Wednesday. Thank you so much, KK.
I'm proud of you, Lydia. Keep it up. I'm excited for everyone who tunes in. And listen, I'm just optimistic that this is going to be busting out of the seams with your audience participation and me to come stick to it. See you at the top.
All right. See you at the top. Thanks so much. See y'all next Wednesday.